Just because you want to sell your practice does not mean anybody wants to buy it. Just because you have a price in mind doesn't mean anyone will pay it. My guest today lived this experience herself, and now she works with clients to help them get their practice into a sellable condition. I'm Carl White, principal at Mark Advisory Group, which is a healthcare marketing agency, and I'm also the host of Practice Care. The mission for both is the same, and that's to help private practice owners stay private. That's usually what they want, but care is better, in my opinion, when it's the provider of care who also owns the practice, because then all decisions, no matter what they are, clinical, business, whatever, are made by the same people who have to turn right around and take care of a patient. So I can feel fairly confident, very confident, that the needs of the patient, patient care are always going to be living in the back of the mind of all those decisions. Just feels better that way. My guest today is Dr. Ruth Mannschreck. Ruth is a dentist, practice management strategist, and owner and founder of Shoreline Strategies. Dr. Ruth built a successful practice from the ground up, and in response to a life-altering experience with her family, reduced her practice hours from 40 to 25 per week. Despite the drastic change, the practice returned to its previous revenue production and then moved forward to exceed those levels, allowing her to be with her family during a difficult time. This shift in perspective led her to create a streamlined business model that focuses on strong systems, building a high-performing team, and fostering a magnetic company culture. We're going to hear all about it. Ruth, thanks for coming on Practice Care.
Hi, Carl. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. We've touched on not so much this specific topic, but what's become clear to me over 4 years of doing this podcast is that it sounds obvious when you say it. If you want to sell something, it takes some planning. And just because you've got a timing and a price in mind, that's irrelevant to what anybody else might think. It's
Sure.
the buyer's needs that matter. And that takes some thinking to do. So we're going to get into that. But first, regular listeners know that was a short bio. That's what I asked for. Fill in the gaps. Tell us more about you.
We started because our emergency that we had was when my daughter was born. And we had to shorten my hours in the practice from 5 days a week down to 2.5 days. And we did it. And I say we, my team and I did it together. And we grew our practice back up, and we enjoyed it so much that we never went back to the 5-day-a-week business model. And then fast forward many years, I was in my office working on a patient in an operatory, and the ceiling collapsed in our operatory. And we had to vacate the building. Long story short, I had to move. And in that process, I got an offer to buy my practice. And at that point, I wasn't thinking about selling my practice. Long story short, I sold my practice before I was ready, before the practice was ready. And later I learned how much money and self-worth I left on the table because I hadn't done any preparation ahead of time. And as I work with practitioners in their private practice, I notice that none of them are getting ready to sell their practice either. So I use all the disappointment and the mistakes that I made in selling my first practice, and I've purchased a practice too. So I've been on both sides of the transaction table, and I see all the things that I could have done to make it a better experience through the transaction. Not just I would have gotten much more money for my practice, but I would have felt better about how I left my team, how I handled things with my patients, all the things that owners, we just decide, okay, we're ready to sell the practice. I guess I'm ready to retire. And we haven't put any forethought into what makes a practice irresistible to a buyer. I tell people it's a lot like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. She didn't need she wouldn't take just any size porridge or bed. She wanted the right one. And that's the way you need to approach the sale of your business. What I see docs doing is they take their P&L and their balance sheet and a prospectus, hand it to a broker and say, find somebody who can pay this much for my practice.
Without thinking about,
When you sell your practice, It's more like you're on QVC or whatever that station
Yeah.
is, and you have to present and sell
Hmm.
yours. Why is your practice better
Yeah.
than another practice right next door?
Yeah. And we're going to get into some of this. I'm curious
Hmm.
though, it's not, why did you choose to sell back then instead of,
It's a long
is
story.
it okay?
It's
Okay.
separate from
Okay.
how it helps people,
Okay.
Same
Okay.
problems, just it's more helpful to them if we
Yeah.
talk about what to look for in your practice, all the
Yeah.
things I didn't do
Yeah.
before I sold my practice.
So you sell, and I guess there's sort of a happy state of ignorance because you didn't learn until later all the stuff you left on the table,
Yeah.
right? What was the high level, like sort of how did you start to discover, oh my God,
Yeah, because
I left this on the table, that on the table, and who knew, but
right.
wow. Yeah.
So the first thing was because very common in the broker world is to tell the doc, don't tell your team that
Mm,
there's a sale going to happen until it's over.
hmm.
And that's what I did. So that
Mm.
Monday morning team meeting, when I said, guess what?
Oh, one more
There's,
thing. I saw
yeah,
like Steve
I,
Jobs. Oh, just one little thing. I've got this
I
iPhone.
sold
Yeah.
and I was devastated by how crushed my team was.
Mm,
And there's no reason to do that if you think way ahead. So, what if instead of waiting until the morning after and saying,
hmm.
guess what, guys?
Hmm.
What if we said 10 years before? What if we said to our team, I'm not going to practice forever. Let's say in 10 years, I'm going to sell this practice.
Hmm.
So from now on, let's work to make you, as my team, indispensable to this practice so that no matter who buys it,
Interesting.
they're going to
Yeah.
just want you to stay so badly. They're going to keep the culture, they're going to keep our systems, they're going to keep the way we treat our patients.
Yeah.
All of that will run just fine without me physically being
So
there.
we'll get there. We'll get there. But first, give us the characteristics of what an unsellable practice. And listeners, we mean
Hmm.
like, either nobody wants it or they're only willing to pay a fraction of the price. So it's essentially the core
Sure.
characteristics.
So, yes, I look at these as red flags.
Hmm.
Probably the one I see most often is where the owner of the practice is actually the brand of the practice.
So is
Um,
that unique to single doc practices, or is that inevitable, I guess, with single doctor practices?
well, when I see
How
a
you,
practice like my own
yeah,
that just said Ruth Mannschreck DDS PLLC,
it's a good
there's a
start.
problem. There's a problem right there,
Yeah,
And adding the word and associates is cheating.
because there
That's
aren't
not
any.
going to solve the problem. It speaks to what's underneath. People are there because of the doc. So the missing piece in that practice is that we've been selling the reputation of the doc instead of selling the reputation of the practice.
Okay,
That's a
okay,
huge, huge, huge red flag.
okay.
Another big red flag I see for something that's going to be really hard to sell is when the owner is working 70 hours a week. So you're not really selling a practice, you're selling a job, you know?
Well,
Not
did it
all.
matter? Like you went from 40 to 25 and the revenue came back up and then expanded.
So, so,
So
so
whether it's
here,
25 or 70, so help me understand, because it's still
so,
you, right?
right,
So,
it's me, but so when I leave, where's the capacity to pick up all my slack? Because remember, buyers have all different reasons. Sure, it could be a
mm,
new person starting up, and they want a full, they don't want everybody under capacity. They want to pick up all the slack.
hmm,
But it also could be someone expanding who already has a full-time practice, and
hmm,
they're bringing on associates to,
hmm.
so I'll just tell you, having a 40-hour work week for the owner is not enticing to a buyer. That should have been handled. So the buyer is acting like a provider only and not the CEO. So they're going to start to wonder about the business decisions in that practice because this is how it
No, no, I
looks.
have a go ahead. Is it
Yeah.
because if I'm working 40 hours a week, I'm working a job, there's no time to step back, you know, plan the growth, plan the health of the business because clearly is that what you mean? Like it's a
Yeah.
signal.
Yes. Yep.
Person's working a job. They own
Yeah.
it, so they own their job, but it's still, I get it. Okay.
It's not attractive to a
Okay.
buyer, you know?
I guess unless that buyer, well, even if the buyer's fresh out of school, has zero patient census of their own, still not
Hmm.
attractive.
See, it depends. It all
Okay.
depends. I'm just giving you those red
But
flags.
it
So,
really, it winnows down the buyer pool at least.
yes,
Got
it
it.
does,
Okay.
you know?
Okay. All right.
Another red flag I see is if you have a producer or a provider who does the bulk of the revenue, generates the bulk of the revenue in a given department. For example, in dentistry, it
Mhm.
would be if you have a hygienist who is just kicking it, like she's working and she loves it, and she is the majority of your production comes from that hygienist.
Mhm.
If she doesn't like the new doc, he's sunk, you know?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
you need to, it's like diversifying your investments. You need to spread, you
Yeah.
need to not concentrate your production in one provider.
Mhm.
Same thing, another red flag is if you have a certain type of client or patient that dominates your patient population. You know, that could be from a certain industry, depending on your location. You know, it could be a specific age group.
Mhm.
You know, look at the demographics of your patient pool.
Mhm.
If, 90% of your people are over the age of 80, and that happens, I'll just
Yeah.
tell you, you
Former
know,
client, not that
those,
extreme, but yes, there was a concentration. And we're not talking like a pediatric dentistry practice. We're talking about a
no,
general, yeah.
yeah,
Or and listeners, we're talking dentistry here, but
sure.
this is so far what Ruth is saying is universal, totally
Yeah. So
universal.
think about it. What areas of your business could be a line item in your revenue, could be a person, could be your marketing, could be one of your vendors. Another, if most of your not vendors, we would say referral partners. You had
Refer
people,
different than
other
vendor, yeah.
docs that, yeah.
Refer in,
So
yeah.
if you have referring partners that send patients to you,
Hmm.
if too much of that comes from one
Yeah.
individual or one location and then you leave, who's to say that those referral partners are going to keep referring to the
To the new
practice,
one. Yeah.
unless you have already started to deepen you could do it two ways, deepen your bench of
Hmm.
referral partners,
Hmm.
or start referring the brand of your practice instead of the brand of the doc.
So the common theme that I'm hearing in all this is the level of risk. So I'm the buyer and I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to drop $3 million on this practice. I obviously want that to go well. What could make that go south? Well, man, the patient
Yep.
population is super concentrated. It's not, what if, are they going to accept me? And if they don't, I think lots of them are not. And then the patient population is going to drop. Um, my revenue is very concentrated in one or two people, me or the high or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, whatever it is. If they don't take to the new one or that person doesn't like me, I've got a big problem right away. I only have one or a small number of referral partners.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if they don't like me, then and it's not like you can go talk to these people. Typically, I know what you said earlier about tell your staff in advance, but it's tough to get the word out and test these ideas, to the population. Would you like me
Mm-hmm.
if I was the new provider instead of the one there now? Oh yeah, we'll stay, no problem. You can't, you kind of got to buy it first and then go see what happens.
So, so here's another idea.
But wait, before
Uh,
we get there, other
okay.
red flags of unsellable, unless
Um,
if you've got more.
I like to have people think about competitive advantage.
I do
Like,
too. Man,
are
is that hard to
you?
draw out of
I
people.
know. Are you
God.
vanilla toast? Are you just like every other provider on your street or in your industry?
Yep.
You have to have something. Like I said, you're selling, you're presenting, your prospectus is a sales piece. You have to go out there and say, you want to buy my practice, not that one, because I do this, I have this, I have this, and they don't.
Yep. I'll tell you what, over the course of my time, I've been my marketing agency 9 years, practice care for over 4 years. And I always knew that there's zero training in medical
I
school,
know.
in dental school, in any
Mm-hmm.
train, zero. And a healthy proportion of every year's graduates are going to go out into business and zero. And I always knew that, but I've become angry over this time because if there's anything about the business side of education, it is what you just said. Your patients that you would like to attract have choices. You need to be
Mhm.
mindful of what are you going to say to them if they ask, so why would I choose your practice? And 2 in 10 have one. 0 of those 2 have thought about it.
Mhm.
And oh, it's so painful. It's so painful. We all have blind spots, but it really makes me
Sure.
angry. I don't, the answer is let's start teaching them this. Can we have a seminar in medical school? I mean, I'm not asking to rewrite the
So,
curriculum, but in any event, it's
so,
just,
and
it's just,
and they try. So I have to admit, so I'm in the dental field
yeah.
but we're a large industry. We have practice management consultants, and I should back up. I remember being a senior in dental school and so arrogant because I was going to go out and save the world, and they had one class for 1 hour on how to run your practice.
Please.
We had to go to it, and I'm ashamed to say, I remember sitting in the back row reading the newspaper because I was so full of myself and
Mm-hmm.
how good I was as a practitioner that I
Mm-hmm.
was sure I could make the business part that was inconsequential,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So there's the ego of seniors who aren't going to listen. But our industry, the dental industry, we have huge practice management consultant,
So do other ones. So does
you
Met. So
know,
does every one of them. So does
but
every one of them.
not
But I'll
as
tell you what, most of the practice management consultants that I have met, and I cannot say I've got my finger on the pulse of the population, lots of them focus on the operations. Excellent on the operations. We're going to make you
yeah,
a well-oiled machine, to which I say, awesome. If you don't
right.
have
You
enough
need
patients
that.
coming in the door, look,
Yeah,
revenue cures problems. Operates, you cannot efficiency, you cannot cut or improve efficiencies your way to growth.
right.
Growth is different.
Yeah.
And this is the purview of what we're talking about. And so I like when you say, now you're trying to sell your practice. You're back in the market.
Mhm.
You got to go
Yep.
find a buyer. And guess what? Buyers have choices too, including doing nothing. They
Right.
don't have to buy you. And
And that
so, yeah.
it's a terrible thing. I see it, especially in the dental industry when older docs have waited too long
Mhm.
and their practice evaporates. The
Mm.
the rest of their
It's on
colleagues
the
just sit
decline.
back
Yeah.
and watch it evaporate. Then you don't have to pay for the patients that just walk out the door because
No.
they waited too long.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, it's
So not a good sort of selling proposition. What's unique about you? They wait too long. Any
mhm.
other big red flags of the unsellable practice that you've
Um,
seen? We've hit a pretty good number of them, but I just want to, in case
sure.
there's another biggie on your mind or
Sure.
two.
And I look at, there are different times that a practice is ready to sell.
Hmm.
There's a time based on the owner's retirement goals,
Hmm.
you know? So living, 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 and all of a sudden he says, yep, I've got enough. Let's sell the practice. I'm ready to retire.
Hmm.
Then, in the normal growth of a business, there's a time in a dental office when you should sell, which is you've gone through your plateau and you're trending up again. You want to
Hmm.
sell
Hmm.
trending up,
Hmm.
but hardly ever does that increase, that trending increase, correspond with the day the doc wakes up and says, yep, I'm ready to retire right
No,
now.
they like riding the wave. I mean, it's
You
totally.
know, and they
And you
ride
may
it
not even
until,
notice it right away. Yeah,
oh,
you're right. We all waited. I'll tell
I
you what,
know.
there's another common theme. Oh my God, and we're all guilty of this, and that is, God, I wish I did this sooner. I wish I started sooner. If
Yeah.
only I pulled the trigger 2 years ago. If only, yeah. And that's I don't know what the solution is to that one. That's
But you
somebody's crystal
know,
ball that actually works
why
as
not?
opposed to all of ours that do not.
Right. But why not start having those conversations now? Why
Yeah.
not
So
start now?
so I want to that's the next question. What can practice owners do now, no matter
Start,
listener, no matter
yeah.
where you are,
Hmm.
just like, get this into a sellable. And I got to tell you what, we've had this in other episodes too. Let's say one day you're like, you know what, I'm not going to sell it. Even if you do these things that Ruth is about to tell us about, it's going to be a healthier practice anyway. So
Oh,
why
yeah.
would you wait to make this thing that is
Hmm.
your life run better? Just because I think I want to sell it, I'll start then. You could enjoy the fruits of a healthier practice
And
now.
I have seen that in my clients. I have a therapist who she was she had a great practice, but it wasn't run efficiently.
Hmm.
And so we had to clean it up and get it organized and do all these things. And then when it was ready, she had her
Hmm.
prospectus ready to go, and had an appointment with the broker, and she called me and she said, "But why would I sell it? It's run so nicely. I love my
Maybe
practice
I can
now."
realize my
And sh
retirement dreams just by
and she
collecting the
didn't.
extra cash and
Yeah.
sticking it in the investments, and the sale would be
Yeah.
gravy. Yeah.
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 So, um,
Interesting.
that's another little red flag, is if the owner doc is never gone from the office, if you never take time off. Like if your office can't survive more than a week without you there,
Yeah.
there's red flags,
Yeah.
you
Like, what the
know?
hell's going on in there? Why does it take you
Yeah,
so much time to run this thing when I can look all
right.
around and see other people
Too
not
much
spending?
baggage.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about the starting now. What are the, you know, so we've
So
convinced the listener, start now with what, with where, with how.
there's three big areas that I encourage practice owners to look at. The first is to look at your systems, your operations.
Hmm.
You want your systems to run without input from the doc directly. So
These are
getting your
like
system.
the business systems.
Yes, everything, you know, everything from collection calls. The best place to start, I think, is
Yeah.
what I call the patient journey. From the very first time
Hmm.
you answer the phone and someone is shopping or in pain or whatever, what's the next step? There's
Hmm.
the phone call, then there's scheduling, then there's diagnostic collection, I'm making things up,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
everybody has their system.
Hmm.
And how does the two important things I see missing all the time are, how does one step communicate to the next? The
Hmm.
communication between those steps is so vital
Hmm.
to a system that runs without the doc.
Hmm.
And think about, what do you want the patient to feel at each of those steps?
Hmm.
So think about it. In our office, we have people on the phone who are angry, they're upset, they're scared, they're in pain, they're they're at a high level
Hmm.
of turmoil,
Hmm.
and we have this wonderful opportunity for a transformation so that by the time they get to our follow-up, they are calm
Hmm.
and smiling and comfortable. And we often think of the story arc of a client as going that far, but what do
Hmm.
you want at the end of that phone call? It's so important
Hmm.
to figure out what's the end goal of the phone call, is more than just to get them in the book. It's to make them feel what? What do you want them to feel?
Right.
At each step, I want them to feel cared for. I want them to feel heard. All these things make that a goal, as much as it is putting the information into the computer
Hmm.
system.
Hmm.
You want to make sure your team knows how to make patients feel something. It's a
And
huge part
and that could be
of,
part of this, the patient intake system or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay, so it's pardon me, it's systems. The second piece is your team. To really, do you have a high performing team? Does your team have the soft skills that they need to have to make your practice run without constant input from you?
Hmm.
And once you get that team put together, the third part is your culture in your practice. Does your
Hmm.
culture need some work? Most offices I see have what I call an accidental culture, and it's based on the strongest personality of someone at the front desk, you
Hmm.
know, which is okay on a good day, but that's not how you run your practice.
Yeah.
Remember, your brand is going to have a culture
Yeah.
attached to it. And now is a great time to discover, what is that? What do I want that to be? And how do I teach my team to
Hmm.
behave like that?
Yeah.
So that's
First,
a big part
big
they
deal.
can
First a
work on.
comment, then a question. So the comment
Sure.
is culture, housework gets done, dear listener. These will all develop. They will. And you've got a choice. You can either let it develop on its own or you can shape its development.
Mhm. You can be intentional
I
about
can
it.
tell you what, if you let your culture develop on its
Mm.
own and then you take a look at it one day, there's a high likelihood it's not what you would like it to be. And
Mhm.
reshaping something like that is a hell of a lot harder than just shaping it right in the first place. It can be done. I've worked at companies
Mhm.
where we had to do some reshaping and it can be done. It is true. But um, why?
Yeah.
Why? My
Hmm.
question is, you mentioned brand. I love the marketing world. Brand is a word that I know what it is. I'm not the biggest fan. There isn't a better one because I find that it's got one of the things my industry, I believe, does not do a good job of is guarding the definition of its jargon, which is probably true in a lot of other industries. So what do you
Hmm.
mean? But when you say brand, what do you mean?
I mean,
Because
what
a lot of people
is
think it's logo and color and tagline. I'm like,
sure,
no, that's
sure.
that's that's
It's
way down the road in the development of brand. That's not where you start. So what does it
sure.
mean to you?
It's more like it's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of the reputation of the office,
Hmm.
hopefully, not just the doc. It's the feelings, the emotions that people associate with your office, with
Hmm.
your practice.
Hmm.
Um, and it's the flavor, the culture of what it's like when they're in your office, how
Hmm.
they feel cared for, how they feel like they belong,
Hmm.
and they're more than just a number,
Hmm.
you
So
know?
it's like yeah, it's the what they can expect from you. It's what's different
Mhm.
and valuable and what they can expect. Sometimes I've heard the word brand promise, which I think is repetitive.
Sure.
It's what they can rely on over and over and over again every time they come in to when they visit you.
Hmm.
And
And
that consistency is a big part, but consistency is not your brand. Consistency is how often you're supposed to do your brand, which is every
right.
day, all day.
Which, and that's a big part of where we falter because I think many docs put together their core values. Unfortunately, we take big words,
Hmm.
which are adjectives or nouns, and we stick them on a plat and put them on the wall,
Hmm.
and we never talk about them again.
Yeah.
And the challenge for your team is that they don't know what do those words look like in action.
And what
So
do they
I
not look like? That's a big
Sure,
deal too. Yeah.
sure, but I encourage people to work on turning your core values into what I call core behaviors. Like if
Hmm.
one of your core values is integrity, what does that look like when
Yeah.
it's walking around?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Um, the best example I have of this is a manufacturing company I worked with, which shocked me. They
But
had, I
there you
think
go. Like these issues are common,
they
dear
are,
listener.
they
Ruth's
are,
got a dental background that's not relevant for what we're talking about here. These are
sure.
universal needs.
Yes. So they took I think they had six core values and they turned them into what they call core behaviors.
Hmm.
And they were wonderful. I have to read you one. Um, so one of them is find a way. Take personal responsibility for making things happen somehow, some way. Respond to every situation by looking for how can we do it rather than explaining why it can't be done. Get creative. Just explaining, that's what their core values look like in action. That's
Hmm.
much easier when you can make your core values tangible, something they can see or reach out and touch. Much easier for your team to say, "Oh, so I should behave like this."
Yeah.
And this manufacturing company had a contest where the team members would call each other out. They had a contest. Like I caught my coworker behaving like this, and I know that that's a core behavior. And they handed out it was great, but what
Yeah.
a wonderful way to make it an everyday conversation piece about how we behave, what it means to have these core values on the wall, because that means we behave this
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Have you ever seen the Netflix culture deck? You should just Google
No.
Netflix culture deck. I love it. I
Ooh.
look at it every once in a while. It's very, very long, but it starts with this culture and core values. And what they say is, they say, culture is more than nice words on the wall. And they listed four words. I forget what they were. And then the next slide
Mm-hmm.
is, these were the words on Enron's wall. And then it went bankrupt and they all went to jail. So, and then the next slide is something like, let's face it, something like, culture is really the behaviors that result in rewards and promotions. That's clearly what we value because that's what we're rewarding. Here are the 9 behaviors that we particularly value at Netflix. And it was, curiosity
Oh,
and 4 or 5 specific
yeah.
statements.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really, really good. It was exactly the type of thing you were talking about. And
Mm-hmm.
listeners, Google Netflix Culture Deck. It's a hell of a model. It takes some work to get there. They spent a lot of time on it. This isn't just
Sure.
a Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock exercise. It takes some time.
Mm-hmm.
But man, once you nail it, you're going to look at it and go, there it is. There
So
it is.
if you need a reason to spend all this time and energy on your culture, remember, if you have very high performing team members, there's going to be need to be a reason for them to stay. They
Hmm.
need to be supported by a fabulous culture.
Hmm.
So if you need a reason, a rationale for spending time on your culture, it's to help you retain, because I don't know about the practices that listen to you, but a lot of practices
Hmm.
have a retention problem,
Here's
you
another reason
know?
to have a great culture. When you've got a great culture and a great place to work, guess what? You don't have to pay
Oh,
quite as
yeah.
much. You're not competing only on salary and
Right.
benefits because you've got a great place to come to work. We had
Hmm.
another episode. This is God, 2 or 3 years ago. Guy runs he's the CEO of a pediatrics practice somewhere in Texas, and this was it. This was it, and that was his message. It's like our doctors get called all the time, and then they're like, oh, why would I leave it here? Well, we'll pay you more money. I'm making enough, and
Yeah.
I'm out at 5. I have a life. It's
Yeah.
great here. Can you match that? Well, no, not really. Thank you very much.
Hmm.
Goodbye. And
Yeah.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
everything gets better. So culture is a big one.
it's a
Um,
huge one.
Another sort of like highest of the high priorities to start to get your practice from wherever it is today to a sellable condition. Which what would you say?
I would say leadership and taking on the role of being a CEO.
Hmm.
Many of us
Did that
want
1 hour business class that you sat in the back ignoring with the newspaper talk about that too?
No,
It's a
they
lot to
were,
pack into an
I
hour.
know, it was only an hour every
So
week, you know?
stupid. It's like, why bother? You know?
Well, because we were drastically failing as business
But my
owners,
point is like,
you know?
what's an hour going to do? Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
It
But
and
anyway,
yeah.
go be good leaders. Thanks. Where's my grade? You know?
Part of the problem is we went into our particular industry because we wanted to help people. We wanted to serve. I wanted to use my hands and do dentistry. And that's what I want my career to be. I want to be doing that, not doing payroll, not
Hmm.
answering employee squabbles.
Hmm.
So there's this pull of I want to be a founder and
Hmm.
use my expertise, not a CEO and run a business. And we
You know
tend
what
to
I would
think,
say is good for you for your self-awareness, then don't. Just go work for
right,
somebody else then. You know what? And live
and
your life and good for you.
or or say I look at a CEO and say, I want to do 3 out of the 7 things that a CEO does
Hmm.
and hire
There
someone
you go.
else to
Yep.
do the other part.
Yep.
I fully believe you can customize being a CEO. It has to happen in your practice, but you as the doc owner don't have to be the one that does all of the individual roles of a CEO. As
Yeah.
long as you're willing to pay somebody else to do it, go for it.
But the other
I,
part of it is here's the caveat is that you cannot say, see you later. That's all you. You're still an owner or a
right,
partner. And
right,
you have to have, my advice is keep your finger on the pulse of all the others 4
sure.
parts somehow, some way, because I see, oh, that's the practice manager. That's their, and my first,
Hmm.
in my mind, I'm like, well, is he or she an owner? Well, no, like, look,
Right,
you can say they're responsible for it, but you can't delegate the accountability because your name's on it. You
right,
can, but it's not going to go well.
right.
And yeah, you just, of course, divide and conquer, but you got to,
Hmm.
and that person who's doing those other 4 or 7 things has to have some, you know, finger on their pulse of what you're doing.
Sure, sure. But
Yeah.
that's better than just ignoring the parts of
Yes.
being a CEO that you don't feel like doing
Yeah.
because that's icky.
You can't. Yeah.
Um,
Then don't be a CEO.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, go work, like you said, go work for someone else.
Then go work for someone else.
Um,
Yep.
But, we're already into all the debt that goes with running your own practice, or, we've created this circumstance in our life. So much easier, or
Hmm.
much more realistic, I should say,
Hmm.
to pick your parts. What would you like to do as a
Hmm.
CEO?
Hmm.
Let's find the perfect person to do all the other things that you don't, and then work together to let the practice hum,
Hmm.
and then you just have to find someone to replace the doc when he wants to sell.
Yeah.
Much easier than for him to be a sloppy CEO
Yeah.
and try to present that to a buyer.
Yeah.
They're going to want to know who's running the show
Yeah.
and what, what credibility do they have, and are they staying when the
Yeah.
doc leaves?
Yeah. And I don't know if this is motivating or not. So listener, if you want to, there's certain parts you're they're icky. I don't want to do them. Well, think of it this way. Maybe this will help. The overall mission of why you started this was to take care of patients, and a healthier,
Yeah,
better running practice can do that better than those that are not. So maybe that'll motivate you to say, oh, all right, I at least have to know what's going on here and have an opinion of if I think it's going well or not, or of the people
especially.
who, so that I
Mhm.
can do why I started this whole thing better.
Yep, especially if you're going to want to step in at the end and say, okay, now I want to sell this. So where are
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need to have that long-term information working up to it.
Yeah.
Um, because so much of being attractive as a
Hmm.
practice for sale is where are you trending? It's not about what peak of revenue did you hit at one point in your
Hmm.
career.
Is there
It's
runway? Is this thing at the
it's
end of its life or
yes,
not? Yeah, think about it.
yes.
Like that's actually good. You're gonna go, I don't know, you're gonna go buy a car, right? So a 9-year-old car, you're certainly gonna pay less than you would
Mm-hmm.
for the newer model with a lot of years left and just had its
Yeah,
maintenance done and whatever and has a clean bill of health versus the what's going on in that 9-year-old
yeah.
car. Is that a fair?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And what you don't know, there are no
Yeah.
Carfaxes
Right.
for a
For
practice.
practice. Yeah.
So better that you bring them out and say, this is
Hmm.
where we are, and
Hmm.
this is what's in place to remedy or
Yeah.
accentuate, depending
Yeah.
on what it is. Much better to raise those
Hmm.
objections before they walk away and consider your
Yeah.
offer,
Yeah.
than for them to discover and think, ooh, this is like selling a sleazy used car,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Exactly. We have covered a lot. Man, did we cover a lot.
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be good. I didn't realize we were going to get, you never know. Is there anything you think we missed? Any like sort of
Um,
key,
it's it's important. I think everyone should start now
hmm
looking at your practice. Where are you?
hmm
Where would you like to be? Take a wild guess. What do you want to be in 10 years, in 3 years?
hmm
Start doing things, have conversations with your team. And I encourage people to bring your team in on these conversations, bounce ideas off of them, help them start the conversation because them being brought in makes them feel like, oh, I have a brain. He's considering my opinion. He's asked for my opinion. Your team has a perspective that you, as a doc, do not.
Now, you started to talk about this earlier about, the conventional wisdom, don't tell them until it's done. You're
Hmm.
advocating the exact opposite.
I
So just
am.
just fill in the gaps there of, you know, they're going to flee. They're going to talk. I'm not ready. I don't want this out. What do you
So
say to all that?
that's why I say 10 years.
Hmm.
They're you're telling them, yes, I am going to leave. Of course, they know you're going to leave. No one's going to practice forever.
Hmm.
Um, but it's not going to be for, let's say, 10 or 15 years. So let's work on this together. How can I set up my practice so that you, my team, are so integral that nobody in their right mind would fire you when I leave? Like you carry this thing through, you run the machine, and
Hmm.
you just have a different doc sitting in this seat, but it doesn't really affect how my practice runs,
Hmm.
how your life, what your life looks like.
Hmm.
So we have practice interviews for buyers. We have buyers come in, spend time in the practice, and then when they leave, we do a debrief with the team and say, do you think you could work with them? What
Hmm.
did you think about their personality? How did they
Hmm.
treat you? Did they
Hmm.
talk to you like a professional? All these things to get them to practice
Hmm.
being part of the decision of how is the practice going to go. Sure, they're not going to be the decision,
Hmm.
but to get their input because they have this perspective that we do not have
Yeah.
as docs.
Yeah. So the unconventional wisdom is just what you just said. Very good.
Yeah.
The other wrap up question I ask is, what's something that a listener whose attention you have caught can do like today, as soon as the episode's done? They say, she's right. I don't know where I am in this. Maybe I'm awesome. Maybe I don't think I am. Um, and I want to get to a sellable condition. It's a very large thing.
It is.
Give me something.
It
Just
is.
just kick me off the starting line with something simple.
Sure. And I would say wherever you start with your team, do it with your team. And I would go back to basics. This is how important culture is. I would go back to your core values. And I would say, help me to your team, help me turn these core values into behaviors. What does excellence look like in action in my
Hmm.
office? What does
Hmm.
that mean?
Hmm.
What would it look like if you caught your teammate doing
Hmm.
something that lived, put your core values into action and start that conversation? Because having a wonderful, irresistible culture is the first step to having a great team. You have
Yeah.
to have a way to protect and support a great team.
Yeah.
Then, then you can work on your team and then you can work on your systems.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I-
you
it,
get
the, la-
there, you
the
get
la-
through all of them.
yeah, the last company I worked at, they were the ones who had to, I'll say, redo or update the culture. But it was really about it really, you're right. I mean, I'm remembering it now. There was a mission statement and a vision statement.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think those really even changed. They were good, but it was then what? And it was core behaviors. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't values. And obviously, honestly, when you read the behaviors, you could glean for yourself what the values most likely are.
Mm-hmm.
And most people would read them and come up with very similar answers, which is a sign of success. But they were,
Mm-hmm.
candor, I remember was one, I forget what they were, but it was get it done. That was one. Just go get it, whatever. And they were
Mm-hmm.
very much now how you implement them and how sort of honest you are with them. And
Mm-hmm.
are they used in pejorative ways or in constructive? That's all separate. But first you've got to get
Mm-hmm.
these. And by the way, you want like six. I mean, you can't have 15 of them. It's too many. It gets to
Core
be too much.
values, you
Yeah,
mean?
core behaviors.
I actually, they once you get started, you'll end up with a whole lot
I
of
would say
core behaviors.
my only personal thing is if you have like let's say you've got 20, you're going to start with a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
eventually what you want is at the end of it, this is a term I learned, mutually exclusive but collectively complete. So each behavior in this context, there could be
Mm-hmm.
zero overlap between behavior one and the rest of them. So they are totally
Oh, I
self-contained,
see. Mm-hmm.
mutually exclusive. And the reason for that is if there's commonality between behavior one and behavior four, it gets confusing because behavior one is still different with
Sure.
behavior four. So I violated one, but I was behavior one, but I was good with four. So what's the
Yeah.
problem? Can't have that. So
Mm-hmm.
mutually exclusive, no overlap at all. But when you put them all together, all these six or seven or eight,
Right.
collectively, this is complete. This describes us.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
mutually exclusive, but collectively complete. And it's why it takes a while. And it gets annoying. Like, is there any overlap? And you really just
Mm-hmm.
you just
And
you've
I
got to be
think,
almost like lawyerly and forensic-y to say, could there really be? And at some point you're like, oh, we're close enough. But still, go through that exercise because I promise you, you're going to avoid problems down the road.
mhm. The other piece of culture is that it's not a one and done
Hmm.
thing. Culture is one of those things that you need to talk about all the time,
Hmm.
again and again and again.
Hmm.
Every team meeting, if you have monthly team meetings, there has to be a part for culture talking about it because if the people at the top don't talk about culture, obviously it's not important,
Hmm.
you know? So you
Yeah,
have to role model that you can walk the talk
so true.
and keep that in front of your team all the time.
It's
It
got to
never
be
stops.
talked and maybe measured that, be careful because it's hard to
Sure.
do. But when another company I worked with, it was the 3-year shelf life. This massive new initiative would roll. It's Fortune 500 company, massive new initiative, huge, a lot of money, a lot of time. And then they'd launch it. And then the joke was, see if it's around in 3 years.
Yeah.
A lot of fanfare in year one.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got the zealots in year two. And then even they get
Yep.
tired by the end of year two. And year three, it's petering out. And you're like, wow, I guess we're
See,
going
and
back to the way it was because nobody
well,
talked about it. And it was now it's yours. Like, well, unless I hear it from you, my friend, guess what's going to happen? So,
yeah. And
you know,
it's in our world, it's the same thing that happens when Doc comes back from a convention. The Monday after Doc comes back from a
yeah.
convention, we just know we're going to do all this weird stuff, but if you hold your nose long enough, he'll forget and we'll go back to business as
Yeah,
usual.
yeah,
You
yeah.
just have to wait for him to get over it,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
know?
it's hilarious.
Yeah,
Um,
we do the same thing.
yeah. Thank you so much. This has been great. This went, you never know where, it's going to be a good topic. It's a
Yeah.
great guest. You never quite know all the ins and outs, but really interesting, really important. I would say, listener, just to put a exclamation point on it. So what do you want to start with? Start looking at your culture. Just look at yourself in the mirror and say, do we really have one? Honestly, do I really think we've got one? And the answer to that is, if you can list out something that sounds kind of, broad but specific enough, then yeah, you do. Are we living it every day? Can I point to tangible things we're doing? And if the answer is not sure or no, you don't. It's a
Ask your
good place.
team. Ask
Yeah.
your team if you have a culture
And
and
by
what
the
would
way,
they list?
and you know what? Ask them individually. Just say, do we have a culture and what do
Hmm.
you think it is? And unless you get yes and the same answer from all of them, you don't have one.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's very eye-opening.
yes, yes. So thank you for coming on Practice Care.
Mhm.
We've got all your contact information that you provided, so they're going to go into the show notes for this
Great.
episode. And that way, anybody who wants to get a hold of you has yet another way to do it. 2 points before we close out. First, if you're like Ruth or us and you serve private practice owners, or you're one yourself, either way, you've got experience or expertise on the business side of private practice. And don't overthink that. Something that you think is boring and stupid and so obvious, who wouldn't know it? I promise you. Many, many others don't know it. There's a link in the show notes of every episode. A couple of clicks. Tell us what's on your mind. Tell us your idea, and we'll get you scheduled as soon as possible. Finally, you got to subscribe to Practice Care if you haven't. Practice Care, one word. We're everywhere. We're hosted on Apple and Spotify, but every player finds us. Super easy. Subscribe. That way you can stay up with every new episode, which we do continuously once a week. Thanks very much, and till next time.